Principal Graham Elmore at Coddington. Mr. Elmore, could you please tell us about your experience with Hurricane Florence, both the preparation for and the experience of it?
Sure, it's been a tremendous learning opportunity. I've only been a principal since the middle of July, so coming in, I've never been a part of a shelter either, so having both worlds collide was very interesting. I was appreciative of Dr. Markley and our senior leadership bringing all the shelter principals together on that Tuesday. I think that was the 11th, before we'd already closed schools, but to help us get prepared and have a game plan. It gave me an opportunity to pick the brains of other principals that have been a part of it to kind of figure out the different nuances of what there is, because you can never really plan for a crisis. You can have an idea, but when you roll in multiple agencies coming into your building, it's very different than having 500 plus kids come in. So it was neat to see all the agencies come together from all different facets of life to work together to support the community and provide that kind of safe haven. If I had one person say thank you for just giving them someplace to feel secure, I probably had 100 over the course of the over 100 people we had through those 5 days. I was here from Wednesday the 12th until that Sunday the 16th when it closed, and got a little bit of reprieve. My assistant principal was kind enough to come in, and once she could get out from the storm and kind of help each other across the district, all of us principals, people were pitching in. Senior leadership was sitting in our offices running the shows as well, so they were at ground zero, I guess, if you want to call it that.
And we see the cot here. You were actually spending the night here, Mr. Elmore.
Yeah, we were here. I was very fortunate because we had a generator, so we never lost power. We had air conditioning.
Wow.
My family was at home because I have a 5-month-old daughter, so she was at home with my wife and her family. So they'd come when the storm would break to get a little reprieve because we were out powered until last week. So it's very different. My wife jokes and says, I guess the principal does have to sleep in their office every once in a while. And so that was the case. But, it was kind of around the clock. You had multiple agencies. DSS kind of was the point. You had the Sheriff's Department helping provide security. The Health Department provided nursing. Child nutrition through New Hampshire County Schools did all the feeding and the nutritional piece. So it was everybody kind of working together, and we were just one of 5. And we by far kind of fared. We were very lucky in terms of our facility holding up together really well, which is why I think we were able to open up again that following Tuesday. Currently, as I sit here, we have a medically fragile shelter going on where New Hampshire Regional Medical started off, and then the state has come in and kind of taken over that, and then they've done a great job, kind of a seamless transition from one shelter to the next. But it's very different. It's not sitting here worrying about lesson plans and content. You're worried about people. And I think as a principal, that's our number one priority. And my job was to open up the building and provide the facility and get them and answer any questions. But we all kind of worked together to make decisions that we felt were best for protecting people in a time that just wasn't fun. I think Dr. Markley at one point tweeted out something about it felt like being stalked by a turtle. With this storm, it was slow moving, and so it was some long days. It just never got here quick enough, and it just kind of set in on us. And it was just different. But you had a lot of people that were tired, that hadn't been home, were unsure about what their homes looked like, but they were willing to kind of do whatever they had to do to take care of the community, because it all kind of started with us for that little bit of time and helping us branch out.
Speaking of Twitter, I saw a number, Dr. Markley, a number of principals also tweeting, sharing insights from their school. I saw where Lester Holt was out here doing some filming too. So if you could kind of describe sort of all the attention, but also how you're able to leverage something like Twitter just to share out, to affirm, and that sort of thing too.
Sure, it was interesting. My wife and daughter came for a brief moment and was like, "Hey, somebody's getting interviewed outside of your office," and I could kind of see at the time I didn't realize it was Lester Holt. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not one to try to get in the news and do things like that. So after it was all said and done, I went out and checked, is everything good? They're like, yeah, it was Lester Holt. I was like, no way. And they showed me a picture, and he, come and doing stories and just talking to people. I think when I actually got to see the story on NBC Nightly News, it was just talking about what the shelter conditions were like and how, providing a safe haven for people. But what I saw after that was an outpouring from the community, because, I tweeted a picture out of saying, hey, thanks, Lester Holt and NBC crew for coming to check on us. But we had a family drove all the way from Florida, came to us to deliver goods through the storm. We had a group from Greenville, South Carolina come have a flatbed truck, you name it, they had it to bring to us. So what was awesome, you don't always want news crews on your campus unless it's for good things. And this was one of those deals that kind of varied whether, storms, is it good or is it bad? But it made people aware of what we were going through. But they thought also we were the only shelter.
Yeah.
and there was more of us, so we tried to take and push that and use those resources to give it. I used the Twitter during it just to kind of promote the good things that were going on, because in storms it's a lot of doom and gloom, and so there was a lot of good things happening in the midst of the storm. We had a gas tank diesel driver come all the way from Texas 17 hours straight to deliver gasoline to make sure our generator was up and running so that we never lost power. So, giving them a little bit of good, it's social media, and it can go as far as somebody else takes it for you. But I also used it for me because cell phone signal was kind of limited, and it helped my family, like my parents and my wife and in-laws, know that I was okay, because they could see that I was continuing to put stuff out, and so they knew that if I was doing that, if they couldn't reach me, at least they knew everything was okay, everybody was safe, because everybody's worried about each other.
Yeah.
And so it was a great way to connect and see the good things that were going, and to kind of put things on the radar for other principals in the area, like, hey, this group's here, heads up, they're coming. Because as much as we were trying to communicate, there was just some dead periods that the storm just didn't allow for that ease of communication. So whenever I'd go stand outside in the breezeway for a little bit and find a little bit of cell service, we'd shoot that out real quick just to be like, hey, we're good, everybody's okay.
You mentioned other principals too. As a first-year principal, what are some ways in which principals can work together during something like this?
Just constantly communicating. I mean, if Dr. Rollison, who I worked with as an intern at Hoggard when I was a principal fellow, she was one of the shelter people, our shelter leaders. She continuing to check on me, make sure I was okay, and she was going through things that were 10 times worse than I was going on, but she just took the time to make sure we were okay. Heather Byers, who was at Eaton, is also my principal mentor as a first year. So it was good having people in the midst. Dr. McCarty was at Johnson, Mr. Smith at Noble. We're all in a group text together, so when we could easily communicate. We had our big radios that we use for school safety anyways, so we had those lines of communications, but just that periodic of checking on each other just to make sure, hey, are you okay? Hey, is somebody coming to relieve you? Do you need anything? Is your family okay? Can I get out? Because in different parts of the county, we had easier means of getting off of campuses, where some campuses you may have gone on and trees were down and you couldn't exit or enter. So just being able to have that outside communication, because we had very limited touch with the outside world, but just knowing that something else was okay, that in the northern part of the county, because we're a little more located in the southern part, y'all are good, we're good. Just having that support system to kind of bounce ideas off of and say, hey, I went through this, did you go through something similar to this, or have you seen this before? They did a lot of that for me in the build-up, because a lot of it you just can't anticipate. But a lot of people that were working through the different organizations were rotating amongst the shelters doing their different shifts. So we tried to provide some continuity as best we can with those things, because it just all gets back to communication. The more we communicated, the safer things went, the smoother things went, and everybody's kind of living really high in those stressful situations, and as administrators we're used to living kind of in crisis, but a storm crisis is different than a child crisis. Still both can be very severe, but you've got to be able to maintain some sort of calmness through a storm, no matter how bad it is.
Excellent.